Hello. Today I would like to tell you how you can visualize the structure of SQL database schema by using a universal database tool called DBeaver. The problem is that the database may contain large number of base tables. And if you put a description of all these base tables in one diagram, then it will be difficult to comprehend the diagram. Here I have an example specifically from Microsoft Access, where I have quite a big number of base tables, and I can look the structure of these base tables by using the relationship view. And already I can see that there is perhaps too many tables presented, and instead of one big diagram, it would be better to have multiple smaller diagrams. And each diagram corresponds to one logical subpart of the database, meaning corresponds to one register. And these diagrams have some overlap so that it would be possible to put together a full picture by looking different diagrams. Now, in my demonstration, I'm going to use a Microsoft Access database as an example. However, I want to point out that the same approach applies to the databases of our database management systems as well, because DBeaver is a so-called universal database tool for which you can connect with databases of many different database management systems, and you can work with data and data structures in these databases by using this tool. And in my demonstration, I'm going to use DBeaver Community Edition, that is open source and free of charge. And all of you can download it from internet if needed. So to start my demonstration, I first of all have to define a new connection, and I want to connect with this database that contains these tables. So I click here, and now I have to filter based on the database management system what database management system I want to make a connection. So I select from here Microsoft Access. Next, and now I have to define the path. I select the database from here, and now I can complete creating a connection. Now, if I now drill into definition of a connection, then from here I can see all the base tables that are in this particular database. And DBeaver has this functionality that if I just open this connection and select from here view diagram, then all the tables in this database are visualized. So I see here all the base tables as well as all the views or virtual tables. And all these are put in one diagram, and already I can say that this diagram is too big in terms of a number of tables that are depicted here. This is similar to the diagram that I have here. But now in DBeaver, I have this opportunity to create multiple smaller diagrams instead of one large diagram. So actually, a rule of thumb is that the number of visual elements, or the main visual elements that are depicted on one diagram should be 7 ± 2. if there are already more of them, then this diagram is too overloaded with information and too difficult to use. And also imagine that you have to copy this diagram into a document, and in document on a page that has A4 size, this diagram would look very, very small, and it would be very difficult to read it. So what to do here? Here I have this section project general, and from here I can define new diagrams. So create a new ER diagram, and here I have to give name to the diagram. Let's say that first of all, I want to create a diagram that depicts a register of persons, because in this database contains data about persons, register of persons. Finish. And now this diagram is open here. And now I can drag and drop tables that I want to depict on this diagram here. So I drag here table person. I drag here table person state type, and I drag here table country. Actually, tables person state type and table country, they belong to the register of classifiers. These are classified tables. Data in these tables is used in order to characterize persons. So what I want to do here, I want to hide on this diagram unnecessary details. So I do not want to see here details of a table person state type, and I do not want to see here details of a table country. If I want to see the details of these tables, I should look the table that depicts register of classifiers. So I click here, and from here I can select show attributes, and I can change visibility of attributes of all the tables that are depicted here, or this specific table that is currently presented. So if I select from here show attributes selected entity none, and show attributes select entity none, when I have hidden, when I hide the columns of these tables. So actually, regarding the terminology, DBeaver calls this diagram entity relationship diagram, and calls these elements here entities, and these are attributes, but actually this is not entity relationship diagram. This is a diagram that depicts database design. So these are tables, and these are columns of tables. So I have here a diagram about the register of persons. Now I add a diagram to the register of classifiers, register of classifiers. And here I drag all the tables that belong to the register of classifiers. So bed type, client state type, country, person state type, then room category type, room state type, worker role, and also worker state type. And by the way, I noticed that I forgot to add one table here to this diagram about the register of persons. So user account is also here. So actually, two tables belong to the register of persons, person and user account. This user account table contains passwords of users, of passwords for persons who have account for using the system. and this is active shows whether this account is active or not. So I have a diagram for register of persons, and I have a diagram for the register of classifiers. Now I add a diagram for a register of workers. Register of workers. First of all, worker and role of worker. These are the tables that belong to the register of workers. But these tables are connected through foreign key constraints with the tables worker role and person. So actually, table person belongs to the register of persons. Table worker role belongs to the register of classifiers. And because I have separate diagrams for these registers, I want to hide the details of these tables on this diagram. None. Now there is also a register of clients. And again, table client belongs to the register of clients, but it is associated with a table person. That belongs to the register of persons, and it is associated with a table client state type that belongs to the register of classifiers. Classifier is, in other words, reference state. And now, again, I want to hide unnecessary details from this diagram. So I hide the details of table person and table client state type. So if I want to look the details of table person, I look the diagram about register of persons. If I want to look details of a table client state type, and I look the register of classifiers. However, I need these tables depicted here on this diagram because thanks to that I see the foreign key constraints that have been defined in the table of client and that implement relationships with other tables. And finally, I have a register of rooms. Register of rooms. Finish. And here I have table room belongs to this register. Category of room belongs to this register. These are two tables that belong to the register of rooms. But again, these tables are associated with other tables for foreign key constraints, and these other tables do not belong to the register of rooms, but I want to depict these on the diagram. So this bed type here, room category here, and also person here. Okay, not person, but actually worker. So worker, and as you can see, if I, let's say, drag this table that I do not want to have on this diagram, then I can just activate it, press delete key. This table or the illustration of a table is removed from a diagram. However, it still is in the database. And now again, I want to hide these details. So show attributes, none, show attributes, none, and show attributes, none. And so in this way, I have illustrated the register of rooms. So the tables that belong to the register of rooms, these tables have full details on this diagram, and the tables that do not belong to the register of rooms, these are presented here like placeholders without details. But thanks to these, I can illustrate here relationships with these tables. And I also want to show that here you have also another way how to create a new ER diagram. So let me give you just some tests. So I can also create a diagram in a way that I give name to the diagram. And from here, I select tables that I want to depict on this diagram. And I click finish. And as you can see, the result is like that. And if I want to get rid of a diagram, then of course I can do it. I can always delete the diagram, as well as I can, let's say, rename the diagram. And these diagrams are used to illustrate the tables. So if I remove some element from a diagram, it does not mean that this element is removed from the database. So these diagrams here are like database views. So I can have many different views in database to present data in my database in different ways, in different format for different types of users. And the diagrams actually have the same idea. So this is, as I said, is an example how you can use DBeaver to illustrate your database structure. And to reiterate, this example was based on Microsoft Access, but because DBeaver is universal database tool, then actually you can use the same approach in case of databases of our database management systems as well.